Long before the European empires cast their shadow upon the American Southeast, the Shaka people had forged a proud warrior culture, their existence defined by constant struggle against rival tribes, encroaching settlers, and the unforgiving wilderness that had shaped them. Their history was etched into every scar and every whispered story passed down through generations. Tales of courage and resilience that made them fearless defenders of their land and kin. By the mid-1800s, following the Trail of Tears and the forced relocation from their ancestral homelands in Alabama and Mississippi, the Shaka had settled in the lush, forested region that would later become Lafleur County, Oklahoma, their population reduced by disease, exposure, and starvation, yet their spirit unbroken, their traditions of hunting, tracking, and combat ingrained as deeply as the trees that surrounded their new territory. Chief Greenwood Lafleur had secured this fertile expanse for his people, blending Shaka leadership with the influence of French and European settlers, establishing alliances that bridge cultures while nurturing the pride and discipline of his warriors. Among these warriors was Joshua Lafleur, a young man of mixed lineage who had fully embraced the teachings and customs of his Shaka heritage, balancing political savvy with a fierce devotion to the warrior code, admired by both settlers and native kin alike. For a time, life in Lafleur County seemed tranquil. The fields were tilled, livestock grazed, and families thrived in a fragile peace, punctuated by routine trade with neighboring European settlements. Yet beneath this fragile calm, there lingered an unease, a whisper of something hidden within the dense forests and rolling hills, a sense that the land itself held secrets too monstrous for words. It began subtly, livestock disappearing overnight without a trace, the eerie silence of the forest at twilight, and a stench that none could place, thick and pungent, rising from shadows where no human could tread. The Shaka, seasoned hunters and trackers, followed the trails left behind by these mysterious intruders, only to find the paths vanishing into nothingness, as if their quarry defied every law of nature and logic. Though they initially presumed human bandits, the persistence and cunning of the intruders soon convinced even the most skeptical among them that this enemy was something far beyond ordinary men, creatures of immense strength, cunning, and feral intelligence, able to strike without warning and vanish into the night. Families whispered in fear, children clung to mothers, and even the most hardened warriors felt an unfamiliar chill at the back of their necks. Every raid, every disappearance, seemed to pull the community deeper into a web of dread and uncertainty. Joshua Lafleur, accompanied by the imposing Tubby family, renowned for their mounted combat prowess and near-mythical strength, took it upon himself to investigate these disturbances, gathering a war party of 40 brave men who swore to track the intruders to their source, whether human or otherwise. They rode through the forests and plains, guided by ancestral wisdom and a burning desire to protect their kin, undeterred by storms, wild beasts, or the suffocating darkness of the heartland. Every step forward brought them closer to a confrontation that would challenge their understanding of the natural world, a battle that would blur the line between myth and reality, and force the Shaka to face a terror unlike any they had ever encountered, a terror whispered of only in hushed legends. Yet, now stalking their lands with unrelenting hunger and cunning intelligence, waiting for the moment to reveal itself in all its horrifying glory. The stage was set, the warriors ready, and the forest seemed to hold its breath, as if aware that history and legend were about to collide in a way that would forever mark the Shaka people and the land they had fought so fiercely to claim. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, trembling shadows across the fertile fields of Lafleur County, the Shaka people sensed the coming storm of terror long before it manifested, a creeping unease that slithered through the village streets and rattled the shutters of humble wooden homes. Livestock began disappearing under the cover of night, each theft executed with a precision and silence that defied human explanation, leaving only trampled grass, broken fences, and an unmistakable stench of decay in its wake, a foul, overpowering odor that settled over the land like a shroud. Families awoke to the sounds of panic. The terrified cries of animals ripped from their pens, the desperate rustle of feet across the forest floor. Yet when the warriors arrived, following tracks with the skill of generations of hunters, the trails vanished into thin air, as if swallowed by the night itself, leaving behind a chilling mystery that gnawed at the hearts of even the bravest men. Joshua Lafleur, standing among the villagers and warriors, felt the weight of responsibility press heavily upon him. The same young man who had once ridden with pride across the open plains, now confronted by an enemy whose cunning seemed to mock every tactic he had ever learned. He called for immediate organization, instructing patrols to scour the surrounding hills, coordinating men on horseback to cover every avenue of escape, determined to catch the marauders, though a gnawing dread whispered that these were no ordinary bandits, no thieves driven by greed or malice, but something far darker, something primal, something that seemed to thrive in the fear it sowed. Night after night, the attacks escalated. Women and children were snatched from their homes, livestock slaughtered with surgical precision, leaving the community teetering on the edge of despair, and every attempt to track or ambush the intruders ended in failure, as if the forest itself conspired against them, hiding the creatures behind a veil of shadows and silence, mocking the warriors' courage. The Tubby family, hulking men whose reputation on horseback was legendary, rode at the forefront of every search, their weapons gleaming under the moonlight, muscles taut and eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. Yet even their unmatched skill could not pierce the mystery, each failed encounter feeding both fear and resolve, for in their hearts, retreat was never an option. The Shaka were warriors, and warriors did not cower in the face of unknown terror. As whispers spread through the community, tales of creatures towering over men, covered in matted hair, with eyes that glowed with violent intelligence, began to take root, at first dismissed as superstitions, then grudgingly acknowledged as possible explanations for the horrors that had befallen them. The forest seemed alive with malice, every snapping twig a potential harbinger of death, every gust of wind carrying the promise of another strike, until the once tranquil nights became a gauntlet of terror and anticipation, a cruel test of courage and endurance. Joshua Lafleur, his face set in grim determination, convened his war party under the silver light of the moon, outlining a daring strategy to flush out the creatures, combining traditional tracking techniques with coordinated ambushes, understanding that victory might demand more than skill. It might demand courage beyond reckoning, sacrifice beyond measure, and a willingness to confront the unimaginable. With hearts pounding, rifles and spears ready, the warriors ventured deeper into the forest than ever before, their senses sharpened, their instincts honed, moving with the stealth of shadows, yet aware that at any moment the forest could erupt with monstrous violence, that the very ground beneath them might conceal a deathly trap. And as they pressed on, the first eerie cries echoed through the trees, a blood-curdling howl that spoke of something ancient, something feral, and something utterly relentless, sending chills through the bones of even the most seasoned warriors, a haunting prelude to the confrontation that would forever change the course of Lafleur County and imprint a legend of terror into the annals of the Shaka people. The following days saw the Shaka warriors pushing deeper into the uncharted forests and rolling plains of Lafleur County, their horses' hooves silent on the soft earth, their eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement, their hearts pounding with a mix of determination and dread, for each step seemed to draw them closer to an enemy that defied reason and terrorized their very souls. Joshua Lafleur led the vanguard, flanked by the formidable Tubby family, their massive forms cutting through the underbrush like living shields, every sense alert to the faintest rustle, every instinct screaming that danger was near, and yet no ordinary trap or trail could prepare them for what lay ahead. The forest thickened, ancient trees towering overhead, their gnarled roots forming a labyrinth beneath the warriors' feet, shadows shifting as if alive, carrying an oppressive stench of decay, and something far more sinister, a putrid miasma that choked the breath and made even the most hardened men recoil, their horses balking at the scent, refusing to move forward except for the steady mounts of La Fleur and the Tubbies, who pressed on with grim determination, knowing that retreat was impossible, and that the safety of their people depended on their courage. At last, the warriors stumbled upon a grotesque clearing, a tableau of horror that would haunt their dreams for a lifetime. The mutilated remains of livestock, torn apart with unnatural precision, stacked in horrifying piles, clouds of flies buzzing in relentless waves, the air thick with the coppery scent of blood and death, every detail amplified by the oppressive silence of the surrounding forest, as if the land itself mourned the atrocities committed here. And then they saw them. Creatures unlike anything they had ever imagined, towering humanoid figures covered in matted, coarse hair, their eyes black pits of violent intelligence, fangs bared in primal rage, muscles coiled for swift and lethal action, each movement a terrifying display of power and cunning that made even the most seasoned Shaka warrior hesitate, realizing that this was no mere animal, no human bandit, but something utterly other, something that challenged the very limits of belief. Joshua La Fleur, drawing his saber with unshakable resolve, charged the nearest beast, a textbook cavalry strike honed by years of training. Yet the creature met him with an almost supernatural anticipation, crushing his horse with a single blow and forcing La Fleur to the ground, revolver spitting fire into the advancing monstrosity to no avail, his shots rattling harmlessly off thick hides as the other two creatures joined, surrounding him with relentless precision, their primal howls filling the clearing and shattering the stillness with the promise of imminent death. The Tubby family, despite their enormous size and unmatched skill in mounted combat, found themselves engaged in a desperate struggle, fighting back with rifles and spears against adversaries that seemed impervious to human weaponry, their shouts of defiance echoing through the trees as chaos consumed the clearing, the air thick with smoke, blood, and the cries of both men and beasts, a nightmarish symphony of carnage that blurred the line between myth and reality. In the heat of battle, Joshua was struck down, his head wrenched from his shoulders by one of the creatures, a horrifying spectacle that turned courage into rage, fear into unyielding determination, as the remaining warriors rallied, firing their buffalo rifles with deadly precision, each shot tearing into the massive frames of their attackers, driving them back. Yet the forest seemed endless, and the threat unrelenting, a cruel reminder that victory came at an unimaginable cost, and that the legend they were living would echo through generations as a testament to bravery, horror, and the indomitable spirit of the Shaka people facing an enemy born of nightmares. The forest had barely exhaled the last echoes of the initial confrontation when the Shaka realized that the threat was far from over, that the creatures which had descended upon them were not solitary hunters, but part of a cunning, organized force capable of terrorizing an entire community. Night after night, the people of La Fleur County were tormented as their livestock vanished. Families were dragged from their homes, and whispers of monstrous humanoids with fangs and matted hair spread like wildfire through the settlement, each story more harrowing than the last, leaving mothers trembling with fear and warriors burning with the need for vengeance. Joshua La Fleur's death had struck the community like a thunderbolt, the young leader's sacrifice galvanizing those who remained, igniting a resolve that was as much about honor as it was survival. For the Shaka were a people who had long endured hardship and bloodshed, their history forged in the crucible of endless conflict, and now they faced a foe that defied logic yet demanded the full measure of their courage and skill. Under the leadership of the Tubby family and a cadre of seasoned warriors, the Shaka organized an unprecedented defensive campaign, setting up nightly patrols along every conceivable approach, fortifying homes with sharpened stakes and rudimentary barricades, and deploying scouts into the dense forest to map the patterns of these elusive attackers, all while keeping a wary eye on the horizon for any sign of reinforcements or escape routes the creatures might exploit. Despite their meticulous planning, the attacks continued with eerie precision. The intruders struck silently, their speed and cunning making them impossible to predict, and their immense strength allowed them to overpower even the strongest Shaka men with terrifying ease. Every encounter reinforced the notion that these were not mere beasts but strategists, creatures capable of orchestrating raids that combined savagery with an intelligence that chilled even the most battle-hardened warriors. The community lived in a state of perpetual fear, sleep a rare commodity as the night brought with it the constant threat of abduction, mutilation, and death. Yet in the face of despair, the Shaka's warrior traditions held firm, reminding them that courage was born not from the absence of fear, but from the mastery of it, and that honor demanded action, no matter the odds. With each foray into the forest, the Shaka honed their techniques, learning to anticipate ambushes, recognizing the subtle signs of the creature's presence, and developing strategies that leveraged their knowledge of terrain, mobility, and marksmanship. Rifles were loaded, spears readied, and every man and woman aware that the fight for survival required not just physical prowess but unity, cunning, and unwavering resolve. As the nights dragged on, the pattern of attacks revealed the creature's intentions. They were not merely hunting for food, nor acting out of mindless malice. They were testing, probing, and exerting control over the territory, their very presence a declaration of dominance, a psychological siege aimed at breaking the spirit of the Shaka people. And the longer it went on, the more it became clear that the forest itself had become a battlefield, a living, breathing adversary that could shift, conceal, and manipulate its horrors with unrelenting cruelty. In response, the Shaka intensified their vigilance, dispatching trackers into the deepest, darkest parts of the wilderness. Venturing where few dared tread, their senses sharpened to the slightest movement, their hearts steeled against the oppressive stench of decay, the unnatural silence, and the knowledge that at any moment, the next horrifying revelation could leap from shadow to strike them down. Every step forward was a gamble, every breath drawn a test of resolve. Yet the Shaka pressed on, understanding that the survival of Lafleur County and the preservation of their people's honor depended on confronting this nightmare head-on, and that only by embracing both courage and cunning could they hope to survive the siege that threatened to consume them entirely. After weeks of relentless pursuit, tireless vigilance, and nights filled with terror, the Shaka warriors, led by the Tubby family and remaining veterans of Joshua Lafleur's war party, finally tracked the creatures to the heart of the forest, where the trees grew so densely that sunlight barely touched the ground and an unnatural silence pressed upon them like a physical weight. The foul stench of death lingering in the air as a grim warning of what awaited. Every step into this shadowed realm was a test of courage, every movement a potential trap, and yet the Shaka pressed forward, driven by the memory of stolen livestock, lost family members, and the unrelenting need to reclaim their honor and protect their people. The clearing that greeted them was a scene of nightmarish horror, a grotesque testament to the creature's brutality. Piles of mangled animal remains, signs of human abductions, and the remnants of a calculated, malevolent intelligence that chilled the soul, for it was clear that these beasts were not random predators, but strategists, creatures who understood the terrain, the capabilities of their human adversaries, and the psychology of fear itself. Joshua Lafleur's absence was felt in every motion, every plan, but his sacrifice had instilled a resolute determination in the remaining warriors, a fire that would not be extinguished even in the face of monsters whose sheer size and strength dwarfed the men, their black eyes reflecting a primal intelligence and aggression that demanded awe, respect, and terror in equal measure. As the Shaka advanced, the first of the creatures emerged from the shadows, towering over the warriors with matted hair, fangs bared, and fists capable of crushing bone with a single blow. The Tubby family engaged immediately, spears, clubs, and rifles striking with precision, their combat techniques honed over generations tested against an enemy that seemed almost impervious to conventional tactics. The battle erupted into chaos, a clash of feral strength against disciplined skill. The the forest echoing with roars, gunfire, and the anguished cries of both men and beasts, each side adapting to the other's movements. The Shaka weaving through the trees with lethal grace while the creatures responded with unnerving coordination, forcing the warriors to rely on instinct, courage, and ingenuity to survive. Hours seemed to stretch into eternity as the skirmish raged, the warriors slowly gaining ground, exploiting weaknesses in the beast's advance, and striking with rifles loaded with the deadly force of buffalo bullets. Yet each victory was costly, each advance shadowed by loss and injury. The forest floor littered with both human and creature alike, a testament to the ferocity of the encounter and the high price of defying such monstrous adversaries. In the climax of the battle, the last surviving creature was finally cornered, wounded but defiant, a creature whose primal intelligence had allowed it to evade countless attacks and torment an entire community. Yet even it could not withstand the combined force of the Shaka warriors, their spears and rifles driving it back until it fell, marking the first true victory in a campaign defined by horror, bravery, and relentless struggle. Though the battle was won, the forest remained a place of dread, its shadows a reminder of the unimaginable terror the Shaka had faced, and the names of Joshua LaFleur and the Tubby family were forever etched into the annals of both legend and history as those who confronted an enemy that defied comprehension, whose ferocity tested the limits of human courage, and whose presence would forever haunt the rolling hills and darkened woods of LaFleur County. The Shaka returned to their village bearing both grief and triumph, knowing that while they had reclaimed their land and defended their people, the memory of what they had confronted would never fade, a story to be whispered, remembered, and honored, a tale of courage and sacrifice that bridged the world of the living and the shadowy realm of nightmares, reminding all who heard it that the forests held secrets, and that bravery was the only shield against the horrors lurking just beyond the edge of the known world. The forest grew silent once more, but the stillness that settled over LaFleur County was not the calm of peace. It was the heavy, oppressive quiet of a community forever changed, the echoes of battle lingering in the hearts and minds of those who had survived, and the land itself seeming to mourn the sacrifices made within its shadowed depths. The Shaka warriors returned from the heart of the wilderness, weary, bloodied, and haunted, their victories tempered by the staggering cost of lives lost, including Joshua LaFleur, whose courage had inspired both reverence and grief, and whose memory would serve as a guiding flame for generations of his people. The village, once vibrant and brimming with the sounds of daily life, bore the scars of the siege. Barns burned or trampled, pens emptied, families shattered, and the ever-present stench of decay lingering like a ghost, a reminder of the horrors the Shaka had confronted and the resilience required to endure them. Yet despite the devastation, their spirits remained unbroken, their traditions and warrior culture proving stronger than fear itself, a testament to the enduring strength of a people, forged in the crucible of countless conflicts. In the weeks that followed, the community rebuilt, reinforcing homes and pens, retraining patrols, and weaving the story of the battle into the oral histories and teachings of their children, ensuring that the legend of the forest creatures, towering, matted-hair beings with intelligence, ferocity, and a taste for terror, would survive alongside the memory of Joshua LaFleur and the Tubby family, their deeds immortalized in the hearts of those who had witnessed both horror and heroism firsthand. Tales spread among neighboring tribes and settlers alike, muttering of creatures that stalked the woods with uncanny cunning, whose black eyes glowed with primal intellect, and whose strength could fell a horse with a single strike, stories that blurred the line between myth and reality, forcing even the most skeptical to wonder whether the Shaka had truly faced something beyond human comprehension, a force that defied explanation yet demanded respect and caution from all who traversed the rolling hills and dense forests of LaFleur County. The survivors, while carrying the psychological scars of battle, gained something equally powerful, a renewed understanding of their resilience, the importance of unity, and the courage required to face both known and unknown dangers. A legacy cemented in their oral traditions and whispered in the quiet of nights when the wind carried strange, haunting howls through the hills, a reminder that the forest was alive, watching, and never to be underestimated. Generations later, children would hear these stories around fires, elders recounting the bravery of their ancestors, the ferocity of the creatures, and the sacrifices made to protect the people, ensuring that the memory of the Shaka's confrontation with the unimaginable would never fade, transforming from a mere tale of terror into a living legend that shaped the identity, courage, and cultural memory of the community, blending history with myth until the lines were forever intertwined. And so, Lafleur County stood as both witness and participant in a story that straddled reality and folklore, a narrative of extraordinary courage against incomprehensible terror, and a reminder that in the shadowed woods and rolling plains, legends are born from the deeds of those brave enough to confront the unimaginable, carrying forward a warning and a legacy, forever entwined with the Shaka's enduring spirit and the haunting presence of the creatures that lurked beyond the edge of the known world.